Shalom, shalom, and welcome. Welcome to End Time Unity Protocols, Checks and Balances, a series of messages that I am compelled to present before an awakening set-apart nation, consisting of both Hebrews and Gentiles, Gentile meaning Hebrews and all others, who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, Yahuah, as described in the Scriptures. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Symmanayah. This is the 38th installment of this series. My brothers and sisters, end times are here. There's some chatter about the 144,000 Hebrews, some chatter about the great multitude who will accompany them, as mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter. There is much chatter about end time prophecies. Some are even familiar with the fact that at some point in time, two individuals will rise up as described in Revelation 11 chapter. My brothers and sisters, the realities of this season, of this generation, are upon us. We will soon witness things that we believed might be further down the line and discover that they're closer than we realize. My brothers and sisters, know this. We are not called to just sit back and watch these two witnesses execute their task given by the Almighty Father Yahuah. We are not to just sit back as an audience and watch them do their thing, so to speak, or watch them as they are led by the Spirit of the Almighty Father. There are specific tasks and things we must do as these individuals begin to emerge. As the 144,000 Hebrews, Abraham, and great multitude begin to receive confirmation that they have instructions that must be done, instructions that will lead to things being done that are described in the Scriptures, and so much more. My brothers and sisters, the two witnesses of Revelation, I'm not here to say who they are. And I'm not looking to get into that battle of, well, is this person or that person. What we do know, at least I do believe this, there are two individuals, two men anointed by the Almighty Father to execute His instructions. The realities of what we read are swelling up before our very eyes, O Yashar'al. There's nothing in Scripture that talks about these two witnesses being beamed down from heaven or out of nowhere they came. The Scriptures tell us about what could be said as the fullness of their ministry, the last 3.5 years before Yahushua Mashiach returned. My brothers and sisters, when we speak of end times, often we may even find ourselves hearing people saying, I want to get out of Babylon or leave Mystery Babylon. The time is now to begin to seek to discern what processes, what details must exist in order for this to come to be. The times are here to realize that there are many details, my brothers and sisters, that we will witness regarding those who will be gathered from the four corners of the earth. Come and allow me to present the case of two witnesses' preparations. And what I mean by this, my brothers and sisters, are we preparing to grow in maturity and discernment so that when the two witnesses emerge, we'll be able to identify them? Who among us has given thought, what are they doing between now and the fullness of their ministry? Since they're not just beamed down from heaven, what are their lives like now? For I believe they are indeed on the face of this earth as I speak. Please be advised, my brothers and sisters. The Scriptures have showed us on many occasions that those chosen by the Almighty Father were birthed and grew to a maturity that was required of them to perform the tasks ordered by the Almighty Father. I wholeheartedly believe, my brothers and sisters, that the two witnesses of Revelation are adults. I'm also compelled to believe they will execute their mission, and it will require actions from the 144,000 and great multitude. For those of you who just may not be aware of who I'm speaking of, I will take the time and actually read Revelation 11:1 through 14. It says, "And a reed like a measuring wire was given to me, and the messenger stood, saying, Rise and measure the dwelling place of the Almighty One, and the slaughter place, and those worshiping in it. But cast out the court which is outside the dwelling place, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the nations, and they shall trample the set apart city underfoot for 42 months. And I shall give unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clad in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees. And if any wishes to harm them, fire comes out of their mouth and consumes their enemies. And if anyone wishes to harm them, he has to be killed in that way. These possess authority to shut the heavens so that no rain falls in the days of their prophecy. And they possess authority over waters to turn them to blood and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they wish. And when they have ended their witness, the beasts coming out of the pit of the deep shall fight against them and overcome them and kill them. And their dead bodies lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Mitzrayim, or Sodom and Egypt, where also our master was impaled. And some of the peoples and tribes and tongues and nations see their dead bodies for 3.5 days, and not allow their dead bodies to be placed in the tombs. And those dwelling on the earth rejoice over them and exult. And they shall send gifts to each other, because these 2 prophets tortured those dwelling on the earth. And after 3.5 days, the spirit of life of the Almighty One entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell on those who saw them. And they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, Come up here. And they went into the heavens in a cloud, and their enemies saw them. And in that hour came to be a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell, and in the earthquake 7,000 men were killed, and the rest became afraid and gave esteem to the Almighty One of heaven. The second woe is past, and see, the third woe is coming speedily." My brothers and sisters, he said, "I shall give power. I shall give unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 163 days. These are 2 olive trees, and the 2 lampstands standing before the Almighty One in the earth. These are the 2 olive trees and 2 lampstands that are standing before the Almighty One on earth. And if anyone wishes to harm him, fire comes out from their mouth and consumes their enemies." My brothers and sisters, there's no doubt that these 2 anointed ones will be endowed with power from the Almighty Father. What do you think 144,000 great multitude? What do you think those who are still alive who have not died for Yahusha's name as martyrs? What do you think we must be prepared to do? Wouldn't we confirm the words of the mission of the 2 witnesses? Do you think that they only brought to this earth to call fire and plagues down? Have you given thought to the message? For I am compelled to believe these 2 anointed ones will be the last 2 living shepherds before the physical return of Yahushua Mashiach that will lead Yashar'al to the promised land. I believe they will also step to Jerusalem to let those who are still lagging around know that it's time to come to the rest of the brothers and sisters that are drawn to the promised land, to an area that the camp of Yasharal will be, centered around Mount Sinai, which is currently known as Jabal al-Awz, the true Mount Sinai, situated in the northwest quadrant of what is now known as Saudi Arabia. My brothers and sisters, there are some words that are used that sometimes put people at ease. And many people call these words words of comfort, types and shadows. Types and shadows are events that look like specific end time prophecies, or they resemble what one will expect to appear during these last times. But they're not the exact thing that's being described. That's what types and shadows, they resemble it. Types and shadows is what led people to set dates and find themselves wrong. types and shadows of things that look like specific end time prophecies that are unfulfilling but are not. I say to you, O Yashar'al, we are moving beyond types and shadows. The realities of end times are unfolding before our very eyes. If we study the scriptures and we look at the two witnesses of Revelation, there's much work that will be placed on their shoulders. But know this, O Yashar'al, the two witnesses, many speak of them, but not many talk about us preparing for when they arrive. How do we support them? How do we confirm and reaffirm their message? How do we respond and react among them? This is something we must be mindful of. We must seek to discern, lest we find ourselves in the ranks of those who say, oh, that can't be the two witnesses. No, that's not them. There will be deniers, but deniers cannot stop fire from coming down. There will be the unbelieving, but the unbelieving cannot stop the plagues and famine that they will execute. There will be the religious leaders among us, but they cannot stop the orders that are given to the two witnesses. Pray, O Yashar'al, for there will be elders assigned to support and work with the witnesses, elders who would interpret for the unlearned and the undiscerning. They will be elders chosen to lead as the structure of Yashar'al comes together in such massive numbers. Are we not aware that things that have happened in days of old can also happen again today? Let me share with you an example. For Musha or Moshe or Moses and Aaron, they did not just lead Israel or Yashar'al out of Egypt all by themselves. Just the Almighty Father didn't just use them to lead them through their journey into the wilderness. Consider Numbers 11th chapter, verse 16 through 25. Well, I'm going to read verse 16 and 17 and then drop down and read 24 and 25. This is the 11th chapter of Numbers. Verse 16 and 17, 11th chapter of Numbers read, Then Yahuah said to Musha, or Moses, Gather to me 70 men of the elders of Yashar'al, whom you shall know to be elders, and of the people and officers over them, and bring them to the tent of appointment, and let them stand there with you. And I shall come down and speak with you there, and shall take the spirit that is on you and put on them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with you, so that you do not bear it yourself alone. And dropping down to the 24th and 25th verse, still in the 11th chapter of Numbers. And Moshe went out and spoke to the people the words of Yahuah. He gathered the 70 men of the elders and the people and placed them around the tent. And Yahuah came down in a cloud and spoke to him, and took of the spirit that was upon him and placed the same upon the 70 elders. And it came to be, when the spirit rested upon them, that they prophesied but did not continue. Yashar'al. O Yashar'al, there will be a massive number of set apart ones drawn together. This massive number will indeed represent a remnant when you compare the size of the crowd to the world population. Remember, I've stated on many occasions, you can have millions of people brought together, but when you contrast that to the world population, it's only a remnant. From a mathematical perspective, anything less than what is whole, or less than 1%, a fraction of a percent, could be considered a remnant. Soon, O set apart Yashar'al, as end times get intense, we will recognize that out of the great number I mentioned, there will be chosen elders to assist the two witnesses of revelation that will soon emerge. I'm compelled to believe, just as the Almighty Father directed Musha to gather elders to assist him, so will the witnesses reach out to the elders that the Most High direct him or them to approach. What about all those who will participate in end time prophecy fulfillment? Are we prepared to be with them, or will we be among those who will reject them? My brothers and sisters, the time is at hand to recognize those being used to structure set apart Yashar'al. The time is now to ask yourselves, Will we continue to just go in circle and just keep reading scripture over and over and over and over again with no growth? Will we look at the text in the letter alone and fail to discern the living presence of the Spirit of Yahuah sent in Yahusha's name? What are we doing, my brothers and sisters? Do we know what it means to examine all things? To trust in the Almighty Father, to believe Him, to recognize Him. Let me read 1 John 4:1-3. It said, "Beloved ones, do not believe every spirit, but prove the spirits, whether they are of the Almighty One, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know that the Spirit of the Almighty One, every spirit that confesses that Yahushua Messiah has come in the flesh is of the Almighty One, and every spirit that does not confess that Yahushua Messiah has come in the flesh is not of the Almighty One. And this is the spirit of the anti-Messiah, which you heard is coming, and now is already in the world." O Yashar'al, prove the spirits. Are we gaining the information, the instructions necessary to strengthen us so that we can prove the spirits, so that we can put them to the test and render the judgment that is correct? 2 Corinthians 13:5 says, "Examine yourselves whether you are in the belief. Prove yourselves, or do you not know yourselves that Yahushua Messiah is in you, unless you are disproved?" My brothers and sisters, 2 witnesses. Preparation. What preparations are you doing? Should you find them emerging during your lifetime? And this I pray, my brothers and sisters, that we begin to exercise discernment as the Most High instructs us to and reveal things to us. Who is aware of the life in Philippians 1:9-11? It reads, "And this I pray, that your love might extend more and more in knowledge and all discernment, for you to examine the matters that differ, in order to be sincere and not stumbling until the day of Messiah, being filled with the fruit of righteousness through Yahushua Messiah, to the esteem and praise of the Almighty One." My brothers and sisters, it's important for us to realize the discipline from the Almighty Father Yahuah, that it includes His judgment. It includes living orders, living instructions, of which we may not see written in scriptures, but will line up with scriptures. You see, many people who just lean on the text and letter alone, they miss so much that the Spirit of the Almighty Father is saying. But as He disciplines and refines us, those who are drawn to fulfill end time prophecies will see things more clear. I've read on many occasions Ephesians 5:15-21. So for the sake of time, I will not read it again, but I will say it speaks of being filled with the Spirit. It speaks of subjecting yourselves to each other in fear of the Almighty One. My brothers and sisters, being filled with the Spirit, walking in the behavior that reflects set apartness, subjecting ourselves one to another, is as the Spirit of Yahuah works in us, through us, one towards another. It is important for us to know what these words mean. Yashar'al, set apart family. I'm compelled to believe the 2 witnesses are alive. They're on this planet. They will emerge, and it will become crystal clear. I've entitled this segment 2 Witnesses Preparation, as I believe I was ordered by the Spirit of Yahusha. Are you ready? Have we made preparations for the emergence of the 2 witnesses, these 2 anointed ones of Abba Yahuah? Have we grown to recognize the elders who will work close with these 2 witnesses? Have we given consideration that we may just be one of the elders to confirm or reaffirm the arrival of the 2 witnesses? Who among us is beginning to discern that in the structuring of the awakening of an awakening nation that is to be gathered, there are specific tasks and duties that must and will come to be? Be encouraged, my brothers and sisters. The days will come when proof will make it clear that we have moved beyond types and shadows. Real-time prophecies will emerge with intensity, proving that extreme humbling times will bring about the discipline necessary for us to rise up strong and set apartness as the Spirit of Yahuah works in us and through us, one towards another, in Yahusha's name. My brothers and sisters, as judgment has begun at the house of the Almighty Father, it will get intense. There will be those who will face extreme sicknesses, some physical death, some experiences that will break their spirits to the point where they will fall. We will fall on our knees and cry out, Abba Yahuah, save us. Open our eyes and ears that we may hear your living instructions. These days are ahead. They have begun for some already. Just because they haven't reached our doorstep, make no mistake, O Yashar'al. End time prophecies will be fulfilled and requires much work. My brothers and sisters, the time is now to begin vetting, examining all things like never before. The times are here to begin asking questions, more questions, and even more questions, with the intent to identify what the Spirit of Yahuah is saying to you, to me, to set apart Yasharal, and more. Remember, the Almighty Father Yahuah knows our intentions. He who is the Almighty One knows every thought, and he will respond as he sees fit. What say you, O set apart Yasharal? 2 witnesses preparation? Will you begin to seek to discern what is expected of you, me, or us? Upon the emergence of the 2 witnesses of revelation, know this, there will be structure, leadership, and guidance. Come, O Yasharal, come set apart family, and let us understand why preparations are important for the arrival of the 2 witnesses. Until next time, I invite your communications, your questions, your comments. If and only if you believe you are being led to do so, I invite you to continue to witness the messages that I am compelled to present before an awakening nation. Hear, O Yasharal, and seek to discern what the Spirit of Yahusha has to say. Hear, O Yasharal, be encouraged. My prayers are with you. Until next time, I bid you, O set apart family, O listener to these words, I bid you, Shalum.